terdapat juga kemudahan untuk golongan kurang daya penglihatan dan pendengaran. Sebenarnya, selain reka bentuk dan kemudahannya, apa yang membuat saya lebih kagum ialah barisan lembaga pentadbir dan sukarelawan masjid ini. Mereka berkebolehan dan bersemangat. Ada aktivis muda, kaum ibu, dan juga pesara. Mereka anjurkan pelbagai aktiviti dari kelas agama dan keibubapaan hinggalah ke pemeriksaan kesihatan. Mereka menyumbang masa, berkongsi visi dan menjadi pemimpin kepada masyarakat. Selain mengurus masjid-masjid, MUIS juga memainkan peranan penting dalam memberi bimbingan agama. Ramai pemikir terkemuka dunia Islam telah ke sini di bawah program pelawat unggul MUIS. Mereka bincangkan tentang Islam dan kedudukannya di dunia. Mei lalu, saya mengundang Imam Besar Al-Azhar, Dr. Ahmad Al-Taib, ke jamuan malam di istana. Beliau memuji Singapura sebagai negara contoh di mana penganut Islam boleh mengamalkan agama mereka dan berintegrasi dengan masyarakat lain. Dalam ceramah awam beliau, Imam Besar Al-Taib menekankan perlunya penganut semua agama menghormati kepercayaan dan amalan orang lain dan berinteraksi dengan satu sama lain dengan cara yang praktikal dan inklusif. Nasihat itu relevan secara umum, tetapi ia sangat penting sekali di Singapura yang berbilang kaum dan agama. Sekarang saya sentuh tentang mendaki pula. Bulan lalu, saya melancarkan buku riwayat hidup Encik Siddiq Sanif yang bertajuk Langkah Liku Selayang Kenangan Siddiq Sanif. Selama 25 tahun, beliau berkhidmat sebagai AP dan juga Menteri Negara Kanan. Beliau berjuang untuk meningkatkan taraf hidup masyarakat Melayu, khususnya melalui pendidikan. Dalam bukunya, Siddiq menceritakan bagaimana beliau menjadi pengerusi Kongres Mendaki pada tahun 82. Ini dia Encik Siddiq sebagai pengerusi muda. Usaha Siddiq bersama para AP Melayu yang lain dan pemimpin masyarakat di Kongres itu membawa kepada pembentukan Yayasan Mendaki. Terima kasih Siddiq dan rakan-rakan anda. Mendaki adalah badan bantu diri yang pertama di Singapura. Dengan sokongan badan-badan Melayu Islam, Mendaki berjaya tingkatkan kehidupan masyarakat melalui program pendidikan dan sosialnya, seperti kelas tuition dan derma siswa pendidikan. Mendaki mainkan peranan penting dalam kemajuan pelajar Melayu yang memberangsangkan sepanjang beberapa dekad. Yang lebih penting lagi, Mendaki memupuk dalam diri masyarakat rasa bangga, semangat wajar dan keinginan satu sama lain untuk berjaya. Baru-baru ini saya bertemu Hairul Rushdi, seorang penerima anugerah Mendaki di mesyuarat Ketua Pemerintah Commonwealth di London. Ini dia Rushdi yang sedang mengambil wifi kami. Rushdi mewakili Singapura dalam majlis belia Commonwealth. Beliau juga pengasas bersama Reactor, syarikat pemula atau startup yang menjalankan program latihan usahawan bagi golongan belia. Rushdi berjaya hasil bantuan masyarakat. Kini, gilirannya pula menyumbang bakti sebagai mentor kepada belia lain. Syabas Rushdi. Kisah-kisah yang saya kongsi ini mencerminkan usaha baik yang dilakukan Mesra, MUIS dan Mendaki. Menteri Masagos menyebutnya sebagai M-Cube atau M kuasa 3. Secara individu, setiap institusi ini terus memainkan peranan masing-masing dalam memajukan masyarakat. Mereka memenuhi dan memelihara keperluan budaya, agama serta pendidikan dan sosial orang Melayu. Mesra menganjurkan banyak kegiatan melalui rangkaian akar umbi dan sumber-sumber dari PA. MUIS mempunyai sukarelawan masjid yang penuh dedikasi serta rangkaian asatizah dan pelajar madrasah yang luas. Mendaki pula menyokong para pelajar dan ibu bapa serta mendekati anak Melayu yang berjaya untuk membantu golongan yang memerlukan. Masagos dan para AP Melayu PAP telah melakar suatu plan bertindak untuk M-Kuasa 3. M-Kuasa 3 akan bekerjasama, menyatukan sumber-sumber dan berkolaborasi bersama pemerintah serta badan-badan Melayu Islam yang lain. Dengan itu, mereka akan lebih mampu menangani cabaran masyarakat. Ini termasuk cabaran memastikan semua kanak-kanak mengikuti prasekolah, memperkasa dan membimbing belia, serta membantu golongan yang ketinggalan kerana dadah dan isu-isu sosial. Langkah pertama telah pun diambil. MUIS dan Mendaki akan menubuhkan sebuah pejabat bersama di WGS. Dan 7 lagi Badan Melayu Islam akan memulakan sebuah pusat khidmat sehenti atau MMO Hub di situ. Saya setuju dengan rancangan M-Kuasa 3. Saya sokong mereka sepenuhnya. Kerjasama ini sangat baik, seperti yang digambarkan peribahasa Melayu, seikat bak sirih, serumpun bak serai. Untuk berjaya, M-Kuasa 3 perlukan sokongan padu masyarakat. Saya harap lebih ramai orang Melayu akan menyumbang kepada masyarakat menerusi M-Kuasa 3. Tidak kiralah sama ada anda sukarelawan baru ataupun sudah berkhidmat dengan masjid atau Badan Melayu Islam. Marilah kita sama-sama turun padang, membantu golongan yang memerlukan demi memajukan masyarakat. Saudara-saudari sekalian, ternyata masyarakat Melayu Islam boleh berbangga dan meraihkan banyak kalangan anda yang berjaya. Sama ada secara
Many in the community have
perseorangan
succeeded
atau
either
berkumpulan.
individually as well as
Anda
collectively.
juga berjaya memupuk semangat
You have
bantu diri
built
dan
a
gotong
strong
royong yang
culture
teguh.
of self-reliance
Pada masa yang
and
sama,
gotong royong.
anda masih
At the same
berpegang
time, you have
kuat
maintained
pada
your unique
yang
identity
unik dan tetap
while
menjadi
being
sebahagian
very
penting
much
Singapura.
part of Singapore.
Dan Singapura harus
Singapore
kekal
must
sebagai
remain a
sebuah
country
negara di mana semua orang
where all
Melayu
Malays
boleh memenuhi
can achieve
aspirasi masing-masing.
their aspirations.
Marilah kita bekerjasama
Let us work
bagi
together
memperkukuhkan lagi
to strengthen
keharmonian
our
masyarakat
harmonious
berbilang kaum
multiracial
dan berkembang
community
maju bersama-sama sebagai
and
satu
progress
rakyat,
as one
satu
people,
Singapura.
one
Terima kasih.
Singapore. Thank you.
Dan selamat Hari Raya Haji juga. Kewi 同胞，大家晚上好。
Fellow Singaporeans, good
这一
evening.
年对新加坡来说算是一个好年头，
We have had a
整
good
体
year
表现
overall.
不错，
Our economy is
经济
doing
持
quite
续
well.
稳步增长，
It is growing
生
steadily.
产力提高了。
Productivity has improved and wages have gone up.
要感谢大家
Thank
的
you,
努力
all of you, for the hard work
看到成
and
果
the good results.
过去几个月，我
Over the
出席了
last few
集
months,
团
I attended the 50th anniversaries of the JTC, Keppel, and DBS.
他们都是今年
They're all
庆祝50周
celebrating Golden Jubilees this
因为
year.
50年前
50 years ago, which was
是
1968,
新加坡建国历程中
it was a critical year in our nation building.
当时我国独立不久，
Singapore was newly
百业待
independent.
兴，
There was much
还没有
to
站
do,
稳脚跟。
and we were not yet on a stable
英国一
footing.
突然宣布会提早在1971年之
The
前
British announced
从我国撤
unexpectedly that they would withdraw their forces from Singapore by 1971. That was
严重打击
earlier
了
than
我
planned.
们的信心。
That was a severe blow to
那个
us.
时候，英军开支
At the
占
time,
生产总值的20%。
Our businesses and workers depended on British forces, which contributed more than 20% of our GDP
而
then.
且
Besides, we had just started national service and did not yet have a strong SAF.
新兵刚刚征召入伍，
The new recruits were just in the forces.
所以
Only
国家的
then.
生计和安
Our
全。
livelihood and security were thus at risk.
当时的财政部长是吴庆
The
瑞
then
博士，
finance minister was Dr. Goh Keng
吴庆
Sui.
瑞制定政策，
He crafted policies to maintain the confidence of Singaporeans and investors and to reassure our people about their jobs and livelihood.
和机构
He set up several new companies and agencies, including the JTC, Keppel, and DBS, which I mentioned,
这推动了我国
and
的工业
that
化
promoted
创造了不少
industrialization,
工作机
and
会
we created many jobs, which brought down the unemployment rate, which was as high as 7%.
那是一段艰辛的时期。
Those were tough times, but fortunately, Singaporeans and the government came together with grit and resilience.
今天的
Compared to those early years, Singapore now has been totally transformed, and our lives have improved
不
significantly.
断提升。我们拥有世界级的教育
We now have a world-class education system. We enjoy affordable and high-quality healthcare, and we also have a high rate of home ownership.
随着经济日趋成
With
熟
a，more mature economy, our growth rate has
近年来
slowed,
经济还是
but we continue to grow steadily.
失业率保持在低
Unemployment
水平
remains
都有
low,
都有的薪金。
and wages continue to rise.
另外，政府也一直
The fruits of economic growth are being shared among our people through various government measures.
人民
However,
还是感受到
People
生活
still
贵高
feel cost of living
生活压力
pressures.
大大家觉
They
得
sense that they
要
have to
用到
spend
钱的地
more
方多了，
and that their
钱不
earnings
够用。
never seem to be quite enough.
为什么大家会有这样的感受呢？
Why do people feel that way?
我认为
I
大
think
家会感觉
there are
生活
four
贵
main
高
reasons why Singaporeans are feeling cost of living
让我一一
pressures.
说明。
Let me explain.
首先，我们看一看年
First,
轻家庭的
let's look at the concerns of young
他们正
families.
准备买人
They are
生
buying
中
their
的
first
第一套
flats.
房子。他们也
They
计
are
划
also
组织家
planning
庭
to start
生育率
families, have children, and they want to provide the best start for them.
所以年轻家庭就
Therefore,
会很关
these
注
young families
住房的
pay
开
close
销
attention to the costs of housing and preschool education.
年轻家庭关注住房。
Young families pay attention to housing and preschool education costs.
第二是夹心层，
Second, there is the sandwiched generation looking after their children and their parents, both the young and the old. With an aging population, more families will be in this situation, and already more families are in this situation now. What do they worry about? They worry about medical expenses because their parents are getting old and will have more medical conditions they need medical attention for.
他们也担心
They are also
孩子的
worried
教育
about the costs of education as their children are still young.
所以夹心层的担忧
Therefore, the sandwiched generation is concerned about healthcare and education costs.
这个是第二个因素。
So that's the
第三
second
个因
point.
素，
The third point is that our lifestyles have changed.
这些年来，
Over the years,
随着经济
as
和
the
科技的
economy
进
has
步
grown and
人民的生活
technology
水
has
平
progressed,
进一步提高
our quality of life has also
以前的
improved.
一些奢侈品
Things that were once considered luxury items before, or perhaps didn't even exist before, like mobile phones, have now become daily
同时
necessities.
大家出外用餐的
People
次数
also
增
eat
加
out
了
more
休闲
and
娱乐的
also have
选
more
择
entertainment
也多了
and leisure
出
options.
国旅游
Going
已
on
经越来
vacations
越频繁了
overseas has also
看看
become
每
more
年的旅
common.
游展，
Travel fairs are always packed with crowds,
并且每年不止一次。目前
and
正有一个
there are
旅
more
游
than
展
one fair per year.
国际博览会
Currently,
中心
there is one travel fair going on even as we
其实
speak.
生活水平提高了，
Our standard of living has gone up.
说明大
That
家
is a
生活
good
改善
thing because it means that our lives have
不过人们为
improved.
了维持更
However,
高的
to
生活
sustain
素
this
质
higher quality of
开
life,
销多了，
people are spending
生活压力
more than before,
自然更
and
大
that can put pressure on
所以
them.
这个是第三
So
个
the
因
cost
素
of
那
living,
就是生活方式的
which is the
改变
third point, can increase as a result of changing
最后一个因素
lifestyles.
是通货膨胀导致物
Lastly,
价上涨，
inflation has led to price increases.
物价的问题。从数据来看，
According to statistics, the overall price increase is relatively modest,
整体上
and overall,
人民的薪资
wages
增
have
长
gone up.
情况比很多
We
发
have
达
done
国家
better
来
than
得好
most or many developed
不过我
countries.
明白，
However, I know not everyone's wages grew.
有的
For
薪
some,
水没有增加，
wages
还有
have
一些因为
stagnated.
经济转型，
Others worry about losing their jobs because of economic restructuring.
有的
Some have lost their jobs,
幸好是少数。
but they are the minority,
此外
fortunately.
退休人士
And
单
retirees
靠储蓄过
who
活
are living off their savings are worried about their savings running out.
因此对这些人来说
Therefore, for these Singaporeans, when prices increase, any kind of increase, no matter how small or big, they feel as if their wallets have shrunk.
总的来说，
In summary,
国人的生活费压力
there are
就是
4 key
这四个方面
reasons why people feel the cost of living
加薪
is exerting pressure on them. The concerns of young families, the concerns of the sandwich generation, lifestyle changes, and price
人们关注的
increases.
大开销
The major expenditure items which Singaporeans are most concerned about are housing, healthcare, and
这3
education.
方面。所以，
Thus,
政府
the
一直
government has
都
been
很
looking
关
at
注这
these
3个
3
特点
things very closely.
我们绝对会确保
We will make
无论是
sure
祖屋
that
医疗服务
HDB
或教
housing,
育
healthcare,
大
and
家都负担
education
得起
are affordable
请大
so
家
that
安心。
Singaporeans do not have to worry about them.
我曾经多次
I
在
have
国政
spoken
府大
about
会上
education
提到教育的
many
课程
times in previous National Day
今晚的
rallies.
英语演讲
This year,
我会
in
谈
my
有
English
关
speech
医疗
later,
和
I
房
will
屋
be
政策
speaking about healthcare and public
政府会
housing
做哪些调
and
整
the adjustments the
才更好地
government
照顾
will
大家
make
的需
to
求
better meet the needs of
今晚的
Singaporeans.
华语演讲
In
我
my
要重
Chinese
点讨
speech,
论
I am
物价
focusing
上涨
on
的问
price
题以及
increases
生活
and
方式的改变
lifestyle changes.
谈一谈
I will explain
政府可以
what the
怎么做
government can do
大家可以
as
怎么
well
做
as what
来
you
减
can
轻
do
生
to
活费的压力
alleviate cost of living pressures.
首先让我谈物价上涨
First, let me talk about price increases.
一直以来政府都
The
尽力
government has
抑制
tried to
通货
keep
膨胀
inflation low and prices stable,
不过我们不能
but we
完全
cannot
避免
completely
物价上
prevent
涨
prices from increasing. For example,
近来水费起
recently, water prices have gone
这
up.
是我们近20年来
This
第
is
一
the
次
first time in nearly 20 years that water prices have increased
因为是
last year and this year
分2年
because the increase is
这
taking
个是
place
我
over
们
2
万不得
years.
已才做出
We
的
put
决
off the
定
increase for as long as we
因为
could,
这
but
20
in the
年来
end
生
we
产
had to
自来
do
水
it
的费用
because the
增
cost
加
of
了
producing clean water has
同
increased
时我们需要投入
significantly
大
over the
笔资
years.
金
We also
建
need
造
to
新生
build
水
more
厂
new water
和海水
factories
淡
and
化
desalination plants
增加
to produce
国
more
内
of our own
水的
water
产
in
量
Singapore, and these call for substantial
对
investments.
我国来说
Water
水一直
will
是非常
always
宝
be a
贵的
precious
资源
resource for us,
更
a
关系到国
strategic
家
and
的安全
security
和战
issue
略
as well
也
as
是
a
个
sensitive
敏感的
foreign
外
policy
交问题
matter.
53
That
年
was the
前
case
是这样
53 years ago.
53年后的
That
今
is still
天
the case
还
today,
是这样
53 years later.
如果你
And
有
if
留
you
意
read
最近的新闻
newspapers
报道，
recently
尤其关于我们区域的报道，
about
你会
news
知
in
道
our region,
其中的利害
you
利
would
害
know that
关
our
系
vital interests where water is concerned have not changed.
这个是水价的问题。
This is the issue to do with
另
water
外
prices.
电费今年年
As
底
for electricity
不过电费的
tariffs,
情况比较复杂，需要一些时
electricity
间
tariffs have also increased this year, but this is a more complicated issue which needs a longer explanation. Let me first do a simple quiz. Do you think that today's electricity tariff has gone up or down compared to 10 years ago?
我再问一次，
Let me ask one more time.
你认
Do
为
you think that today's
现在
electricity
的电
tariff
费
has gone up
10年前相
or
比
down compared to
是
10
上涨
years
了
ago?
还是下跌了？你直觉的反应。
What's your instinctive
谁觉得
reaction?
现在的电
If
费
you
比
think that
10年
today's
前贵
electricity
了
tariff is
请举
higher
手
than what it was 10 years ago, please raise your hands.
没有人敢举手啊。
No one dares to raise his hand or her
有
hand.
吧？
Surely someone is willing or bold enough to
谁觉得
raise
现在
the
的电
hand.
费比10
If you
年
think
前
that
便宜
today's
的
electricity
请举
tariff is
手
lower than what it was 10 years ago, please raise your hands.
也没
Lower.
有多少人。
Not many people
现在
has
让我们
raised
看看
his or
数
her
据
hand. Let us look at the data.
请看这张图
Let's
表
look at this chart.
横轴
The horizontal
是年
axis
份
indicates the
过去
years
10
from
年所从
2008
18年一
to
直到18
2018.
垂直轴
And the vertical
是电
axis
费
indicates the electricity
所以
tariffs.
10年前
10 years ago,
刚好
in the
10年
third
前
quarter of
就是08年第三
2008,
季当时的电
the
费
electricity tariff
是多少呢？
was 25.07 cents per kilowatt hour, which was slightly more than 25
让我们
cents.
看这10年来
Since
电费
then,
的走势，
The tariff has gone up and down over the years.
尤其最后今天的电
And
费是多
today,
少呢？ 这个可以上网查得到。
How much is it? You can check this online. It is 23.65 cents per kilowatt hour, less than 24 cents per kilowatt hour.
所以
So the
答
answer is
案
this.
揭晓，正确的答案
Today's
是
tariff
现在的电
is
费
lower
比10年前便宜。
compared to 10 years
刚才
ago.
猜对的，请自己掌声
Give yourself a clap if you got it right.
为什么大家有这个直觉，以为电费越来
Why
越
did
来越
some
贵
people
呢？
think that electricity is getting more and more expensive? I think one possible reason is that when electricity prices go up, people remember vividly.
下跌的时候，
Unfortunately, when the
我
tariff
们可
comes
能
down,
根本没有注意到，
we may not notice it, or we just simply
有点见到
forget rather quickly.
所以这个就造成了一个政治问题。
And this issue
问
has
题是
become
电
a
费的
political
高低
issue.
不是政府所能够控制的
Electricity tariffs really is not something or are not something that the government can control because we generate most of our electricity using natural gas and we import all of our natural gas. The prices of natural
国际
gas
燃油价来设定
are
的。
pegged to global
所以
oil
我
prices.
们跟着油价
Thus,
的起伏
We
来调
adjust
整电费
electricity bills according to movements in oil prices.
让给你看另外一个图
Let
表
me show you another chart.
横轴同
The
样是
horizontal
年份
axis again indicates the years from 2008 to 2018, and the vertical axis indicates oil prices.
电费
Let
和
us
油
look
价
at
的走势
electricity tariffs and oil prices in the last 10 years.
起落
Again, up and down.
最后你可以
You
看
can
到
see
电
that
费的波
our
动和油
electricity
价的波
tariffs
动
track changes in oil prices.
因为电费的成本差不多
That's because about half of our electricity
天然气
costs come from
换句话
oil,
说跟
which
油价有
means that electricity tariffs have a lot to do with oil prices. Some people would still ask, why should electricity tariffs be in step with oil price fluctuations? Why can't the government fix the electricity tariff?
有两个理由。
There are two reasons why we can't. First,
新加坡不是产
we
油
are not an oil
不是
producing
产
country
天然气国。
and we do not
如
produce
果要
natural
政府
gas.
全面津贴电费费用
Fixing electricity tariffs that way will mean costly subsidies. That is not financially sustainable in the long run.
第二，如果我们这样
Secondly,
做的人
if we
这
do
样做的
that,
话用电
It
多的
means
人
those who
得
consume
到
more
的津贴
electricity
就
will
越
receive
多
more subsidy.
那请大家
Who
想
do
一
you
想
think
用电
uses
多
more
了
electricity?
是有钱的家庭
The
还是
wealthy
贫
or the
穷的
low
家庭
income?
当然是有钱的
It
家
is the
庭
wealthy.
所以如果政府
Subsidizing the cost of
全面津
electricity
贴
by
电费的
fixing a
话
low tariff
固定电价
is not
这
the
不
best
是
way
帮
to
助
help
中低收
local
入家庭
or
的
low
最好的
income
办法
families.
有什么更有效的办
A
法
more
呢？
effective way is to give direct subsidies.
我们直接津贴中低收入家庭，
These direct subsidies are for low to middle income families and they're used for their
这也
utility
是政府
bills.
一直以来
That is what the government has been doing.
所有住在政府主里的家庭
All
都能
households
获得
living in HDB
U-Save
flats
水电费回
are
扣
entitled to U-Save
住在小
rebates.
型主屋的家庭
Households
得到的
living
回
in
扣最
smaller
多
flats receive the most U-Save rebates. Those living in bigger flats also receive U-Save rebates, but the rebates are
去
lower.
年政府也调
Last
高
year,
了
we
回扣
also
的数额
increased the U-Save rebates.
所以一房式和
Households
两
in
房
one
式的
and
屋
two room HDB flats
得到的回
will
扣
receive close to $400 of
一个家庭
U-Save
最接近
rebates this year.
400元应该可以
That
抵
is
消
about
多达
4 months
4个月
worth
的
of
水电
utility
费
bills.
换句话说，每12
In
个月
other words,
的水
for
电
every 12
费4个月
months,
是由政府
4 of
帮
them
他们付的。
have been paid for by the
高达
government
1/3
according to that.
其实
It's up to 1/3 if you
不能
think
够说
about
是
it.
很吝啬的。
So you can't really say the government is
今天我花
stingy
了一
about
点时
this.
间向大
I
家
have
说
spent
明
some time
水费
today
电费
explaining
油价
water prices, oil prices, and U-Save rebates and the relationship among them. I hope that people will understand that we have adopted the best approach to lessen the burden of Singaporeans.
人民为生活费担忧，身为政府，
While the government will do its part to alleviate the people's cost of
不过
living
大家也有
concerns,
责任照顾
each
好自
and
己的
every one
钱
of
包。
us also has a responsibility to look after our own wallets. Save water, save electricity, and at the same time, shop around for the best prices and be a smart consumer.
接下来
I will now talk about lifestyle
最后一个
changes.
课题，那就是生活方式的改变。 我会通过3个具体
I
的
will be
例子
using 3 examples: mobile phones, infant milk formula, and hawker centers.
首先，手机。
Mobile phones,
手
first of
机的
all.
出现彻底改变了
Mobile
我们
phones
通
have
讯和生
completely
活方式
changed our lifestyles and how we
50年代
communicate.
大部
In
分
the
家庭只有一
1990s,
台电脑
most Singaporean
家里不管
families
有多
only
少
had
人
one
都必须轮
landline.
流使用
Everyone in
这
the
台电
family
话
took turns to use the phone,
不过
no
月
matter
费
how
便
big
宜
the
8块
family
左
was.
右
The telecommunications
一整
bill
年
was lower
只
than
需要
about
100
$8 a month or $100 a year or
现在
so.
不少家庭已经
Today,
不安
most
装
households
固
no
件
longer
电话
have landlines.
因为几乎每个家
That
庭
is
成员
because almost all
老老
family
少少
members, young and old, grandparents, and
这个
even
是老的少的过
young
后也有
children,
阿公
whom I will
阿
show
嬷
you
甚至
later,
是小孩子大家都
now
有一台
have
手机
mobile
并且
phones.
应该都是能上
And
网的
they are
智能手
mostly
机
smartphones, I would
并
think.
且每一架手机每一台手机
Every
都有
phone
数据配套
comes with a data plan
所
even.
以大家的生活已经离不开
Mobile
手机了
phones have become a necessity in our daily lives. Without them, we can't surf the internet, receive information, or contact our friends. We would feel cut off from the world without them, and our lives would become so-called unbearable.
在迈向智慧国的道路
This
上
is the way forward to become a smart nation. We should
不过
not
在前进
regress.
的过程中
However,
人们在电信
in the way
方面
forward,
的开销
that also
的确
means
增加了
telecommunications bills will grow.
是完全可以理解的
That is
但这还是
understandable.
负担
However, it is still a burden. Nevertheless, the CDAC found that some low-income families had telecommunications bills as much as $300 or more.
一个家庭
That is
其实超过他们家庭收入
more
的
than
10%。
10% of their household incomes.
不过也有一些家庭
But
在这
there are
方面的费
also
用
other
只有
families
100多
whose
块钱
telecommunications
还是
bills
可以
only
符
come
合
up to
全家的需求
$100, and yet they can meet their needs.
我很高兴华住会开办了一些
I am glad that the CDAC has been giving households financial advice through such workshops and suggesting ways to bring down their telecommunications bills.
例如
For
如果
example,
想上网
If you want
看连
to
续剧
watch
和电影
a drama serial or a movie online, please do not use 4G.
等一等回家
Just
使用
wait
家
till
里
you
的
get
无线
home,
网络下
where
载
you can
电影
download the
然后
films
可以
using
尽
your
情
home
欣赏
Wi-Fi.
出外时
And then, when
可以
you're
尽量
out,
用 wireless at
you can
SG
try to use
免费
wireless at
上网
SG for free
减
as
低
much as
数据
possible.
流动量
That can help to lower the amount of
只要
data you
注意使
use.
用量
If we watch our
不要
data
超标
usage,
就不必
we
担
will
心
not have
费
to
用会增
worry
加
about high
大家可以
telecommunications
继续
bills.
上网联
We
络
can
朋友
still surf the
以及
internet,
利用
connect
视
with
频
friends,
跟孩
and
子
video
或
chat
者
with
是
our
聊天
children and grandchildren.
我要举的第二个例子是
My
年轻
next
爸爸妈妈
example
所关注的
is something which is of
奶粉价
great
格的问
concern
题
to the young parents, that is the prices of the
和
infant
其他国家
formula.
相比
Compared to other
本地售卖的奶粉
countries,
的确
infant formula in Singapore is more expensive.
我了解
I
父
can
母爱子
understand
心
that
切
every
养
parent
给
wants to
孩
have the
子
best
最
for
好的
their children,
老实说
and to be honest,
天下的爷爷奶奶
all the grandparents are just
我
the
现在
same.
知道了
Now I know.
对宝宝来说
To the baby,
母乳当然是最好的
breast milk, of course,
不
is the
过
best.
越来越多
But
年轻妈妈
There
出
were
外
more and
工
more
作不方便
young
喂哺
mothers working,
或者是不
and
够
it's
母
not
乳
convenient for
孩
them
子的
to
奶粉
feed their child, and maybe not enough breast milk, so they have to supplement it with infant formula. So the infant formula makers have taken advantage of this to develop all sorts of premium brands. They have also marketed aggressively, misleading parents into thinking that it is more expensive, it must be better. So parents say, well, we must buy the best, otherwise it's not, we can't give the best to the children.
买
So
贵的奶粉给孩子
parents spare no expenses and tend to buy the
为了解
expensive
决
brands
这个
for their
问题，政
children.
府成立了特别工
So
作
the
小组
government set up a task
由
force
徐宝坤
led
高
by
级政
Senior
府部
Minister
长
of
带领
State Dr. Koh Kun to tackle this problem.
他是男士，不过是医生，有资格。
So he's a gentleman, but he's a doctor,
小
so I
组
think he's
多
qualified
管
to
齐
do
下，抑
this.
制奶粉价格的上涨。
So the task force
首
addressed
先，
the
政
issue
府简化了进口
in
程序，
various ways.
引进
First,
更多
government
奶粉
simplified
品
import
牌，
processes
也增
and
加了
brought in
平
more
均进口的
brands
奶
and
粉。
parallel imports.
医院也积极配合。
Hospitals have also come
现
on
在政
board.
府医院已
Now
经改
public
用
college
经济实
hospitals
惠的
are
品牌，
offering more
以免婴
affordable
孩一出
brands
世
so that the newborns
就
will
养
not
成
get used
喝高
to
档奶粉的
drinking
习惯。
expensive
因为
brands
你一
of
喝惯了，
infant formula because once you are used to it, it's very difficult for them to change the brands of infant formula. Some private hospitals are also adopting this approach, and we encourage them to do so. The government has also indicated clearly that it will tighten regulations for the labeling of infant formula and put a stop to misleading advertising. What are misleading advertisement? In the past, there were many advertisements showing some lovely babies of some cute animals wearing the motorboards, very impressive, as if drinking that particular brand, the baby will become smarter. I'm glad that there are not so many of these advertisements, not totally eliminated, but I think that they are much lesser now. I think the formula makers realize that government is determined to solve this problem. At the same time, the task force launched a campaign to educate parents that more expensive infant formula is not necessarily better unless a child has a special medical requirement. Otherwise, all infant formulas sold in Singapore are suitable for our children and will meet their nutritional needs. My generation, when we were infants, there were no such expensive brands of infant milk, yet we grow so strong and healthy. So I believe, I'm so confident that the next generation will not have a problem. Through our efforts, there are now more reasonably priced options for consumers to choose from. Average prices of formula milk have dropped. More importantly, young parents are better informed. They are now able to make better choices based on their needs and budget. Therefore, they can save money, reduce the cost of living, and feel less under pressure. Of course, not every household needs to buy infant formula, but everybody needs to eat. So my third example is on hawkers' food. Nowadays, there are fewer families that cook at home because there are more dual-income families these days. They have no time to cook after working the whole day, and it is more convenient for them to eat out. This lifestyle change is completely understandable, but eating out costs more than cooking at home, so it pushes up the cost of living. And one way to help Singaporeans manage the cost of eating out is to build more hawker centres. In the past few years, government has built 7 new centres and 13 more are on the way. Stores in the new hawker centres are required to provide affordable food choices. Every store must assure that there will be at least one meal option which is priced at $3 or less. In other words, when we tender out the hawker centres, we do not access bids just on their tender price alone, but also on whether the operators can afford affordable options. For example, you can get affordable and delicious chicken rice at our Old Tampines Hub. And you can see they're actually halal, so everybody can eat. Tonight, I have invited the chicken rice stall holder and 8 other hawker stalls from all over Singapore at our reception tonight. This is providing a proper advertisement. So at the end of this National Day rally, you can taste their food and hope you will like it. Hawker centres are important not just to keep the cost of living low, they are also a cultural institution, a unique part of Singapore's heritage and identity. Hawker centres are our community dining rooms. Singaporeans of all races, Chinese, Malay, Indian, Eurasians, and of all religious faith and income groups, they are able to eat together in hawker centres, And here you can enjoy nasi lemak, char kway teow, and roti prata as such local delicacies. And of course, I hope that you remember last year at our National Days rally, what we discussed to eat as far as possible, choose healthier options like soto ayam, yong tau hu, or dosai. Singaporeans who are staying overseas, they always crave for local hawker food. When we hold Singapore Days overseas, the hawker food is the biggest draw for homesick Singaporeans. We can see that hawker food is the best cure for homesickness for Singaporeans. So our hawker centers and hawker food resonate with many Singaporeans. Mediacorp Channel 8's Tuesday Report has a popular series of documentaries where we connect, introducing hawker culture. It's very popular. And from here, there are many touching stories, and they happen at the hawker centers which are familiar to us. Let us take a look.
来10块半。
慈园小贩中心位于后港9道组屋区，是第一座设在民众俱乐部里头的小贩中心。2015年8月6号开幕的慈园，也是20座新一代小贩中心里最先落成启用的新气场。
谢谢啊。
慈园小贩中心的不同在于它以社会企业形式经营，每个摊位必须售卖至少2道价格低于2块8的食物，让主要的顾客群，也就是附近的祖屋居民负担得起。每个星期天的下午直到晚上，来自全岛各地的爱心歌仔戏团学员都会来慈园民众俱乐部学戏。
From
the clip, you can see that our hawker center, our hawkers culture, is a part of our community. It is also our collective memories and also good in creating our sense of belonging to the nation. 3 years ago, the Singapore Botanic Gardens was inscribed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This was a proud moment for Singaporeans because this is the first time and also the only UNESCO World Heritage Site that we have. Now we have decided to apply for a second UNESCO inscription, and this time is on hawkers culture. We want to apply and nominate our hawkers culture to be inscribed on the UNESCO representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. In our various consultations, there was a widespread support from Singaporeans to nominate our hawkers culture because it is uniquely Singapore and it reflects our daily lives. If this is successful, it will help to safeguard and promote this unique culture for future generations. It will also let the rest of the world know about our local food and our very unique multicultural heritage. So I hope that everybody will strongly support this nomination so that our hawker culture can stand proudly on the world stage.
今晚我谈了
Tonight,
建国初期的情况，以及新加坡
I'll
持续
speak
的经济发
about
展。
our early years and economic journey, how our standards of living have improved, and how the government is working with you to cope with the cost of
不
living
过，一个国家
pressures.
不能只追求
But a
经济
nation
增长
cannot just
和
be
物质上
pursuing
的
economic growth and material
让我们
achievements.
凝聚起来的
What holds
是那
us
些非物
together
质的东
are
西，
the intangibles,
也就是我们的价值
our
观、
values,
我们的集体回忆
our shared
和我们的共
memories,
同使命。
and our collective sense of mission.
今年的国庆庆
This
典
year's National Day Parade featured 5 individuals who shared
他
with
们克
us
勤克俭，乐观进取，
their life
关怀社区，以
experiences.
各自的方式
They
为
led
新加
difficult and
坡
frugal
做出
lives,
贡献
but they were optimistic and driven, and they
其中
care
一
about
位
the
就是
communities.
88岁的
One of them was Madam Wu Yun-sam, an 88-year-old Samsa woman.
胡老婆婆细说了当年下南洋
She came
来到
to
新加坡讨生活的故事
Southeast Asia to earn a
为
living,
了可以过
and in
更好
order
的日子，胡老
that she
婆
would
婆
be
和她
able
的
to
姐妹
lead
在
better
工地
lives. She
做出
and
动
her
的工
fellow
作
Samsa sisters
当时的生活
worked very
很艰难
hard at the construction
胡老
sites.
婆婆见证了
She witnessed
新加坡
the
的推
dramatic
进，
transformation of
并为我
Singapore,
国的发展感到
and
自
she's
豪。
proud of what we have become.
胡老婆婆的回忆
Her
让许
touching
多
life
人
story
十
moved
分感
many
动，
people,
包括我在内。
including me.
听听她怎么
Let's
说。
hear what she said.
15歲就當起頭家啦，咩嘢都係我。
I became a breadwinner at 15 years old. My families depended on me. My Samsa sisters looked after me.
我哋嗰陣時辛苦咗，
Our lives then were very
好
difficult.
緊要。
Change is important.
咁啊話而家個時代。
I will still say that times are better now.
新加坡
Now in
住
Singapore,
得又好，
we live
食
well,
嘅又好，
we eat
細
well,
佬哥又書讀
our children go to school,
身體健康，冇
we
病
are healthy,
啊
good health, no illness or pain. Have rice, we eat rice. Have porridge, we eat porridge.
有飯食飯。
Have
有粥
rice,
食
eat
粥
rice. Have
係
porridge, eat porridge. Right?
這位可敬的長者提醒
So
我們，
this
在追求
respectable
高素質生活的
elderly
同時
woman
也要有樂
reminded
天
us that we
幸
have
福
to
的
be
人生態度。
optimistic and we should have a happy life.
53年前，新
That
加坡幾乎
53
一無
years
所
ago,
有。
Singapore was
胡老
almost
婆
have
婆
nothing.
和其他建國一代
She
辛
and the
勤
pioneer
奮鬥
generation
把國
toiled
家
and built
建設起
Singapore
來。
from scratch.
借着一代又一代的國人
The
在建國
generations who
先
followed
烈建
them
立的基礎
built on
上
the foundations
繼
that
續
the
努力
pioneers
建
laid.
讓我們安居樂業。
They
讓我
too
們有
have
更好
worked
的
hard
基
so
礎
that we
去
can
實
have
現
better
更遠
lives.
大
Now
的
that
夢
we're in a
想
stronger
跨越
position to
新的
realize
高峰
bigger dreams and scale new
現在
heights.
建國的棒
Today
子
it is
交
our
給了我們
generation's
這一代，
turn to build
我們也要
Singapore.
跟先烈
And
們
we
一樣
too must be
堅韌不
resolute
拔
and open
一
new
樣
frontiers
勇於開拓，為我
so
們的
that
子孫
our
創造
children and
更
grandchildren
美
will
好
have
的
an
未來。
even better future.
這樣，
This is
新加坡
how
才
we
可以
keep Singapore
生
going
根
generation
代代相傳
after
繼
generation,
續成為
so
一個
that Singapore will
獨立的
always
國
remain
家
an
獨特的
exceptional
國家
country that stands
立
tall in the
足世界
world and an
讓新加坡
endearing
永遠
home
是你我珍惜的
for
溫馨家
all
園
of us.
謝謝大家。
Thank you, everybody.
We'll now take a short break. Please return to your seats by 8:05.
Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong has delivered his National Day rally speech in Malay and Mandarin. He will deliver his speech in English at 8:15 p.m. Stay tuned.
The National Day Rally speech is a keynote annual address by the Prime Minister, and the government's Feedback and Engagement Unit REACH would love to hear your views on this year's National Day Rally speech. Here's how you can reach us. Come to our public forums on 21st August or 1st September to have a dialogue with us. Drop by one of our conveniently located mobile listening points to share your thoughts with us. Visit our online platforms to give us your inputs. For more information, please visit our website. Tonight on 5.
They are family, but come from very different generations.
I'm not so close to my grandma.
We just say hello at your lunch, that's all.
There is very little common ground and even less of a connection.
Start your work.
You're stubborn, you don't listen what I say. I never see you smile. I smile, I don't smile.
In a 4-part series, On the Red Dot finds out what it takes to bridge the generation gap.
I'm gonna do it now. Where are you going?
This week, Emma and her grandma clash over living green.
I think it's everyone's duty to reduce, reuse, and recycle.
I don't believe in reducing waste. 哎呀，很麻烦的啦，你 troublesome 嘞。
Over the next 7 days, Emma and Mildred will take on the Zero Waste Challenge.
Singapore's landfill will be filled by 2035.
By then I'm not alive.
You may not be, but I am.
So your problem, not my problem.
Will taking on the Zero Waste Challenge bring them closer? Emma Yoon is only 15, but already an eager environmentalist. She's sworn off meat and is cutting down waste by ditching single-use plastics.
My lunchbox is made of grade 5 plastic, which is reusable. And I bring my own reusable cutleries and water bottle to school. I have a recycling area set up in my house, so I encourage my family to put their plastics or paper in there. Around the world, human activities are causing global warming, and I feel I need to do my small part to change that.
But there's one person in Emma's family who's sticking with plastic. 71-year-old grandmother Mildred.
Our generation, we don't like doing all this recycling and then saving the earth. It's a bit 麻烦.
Mildred is a former Army Staff Sergeant and regularly helps out at a soybean shop run by her son-in-law.
I like to help people, especially my family members.
But Mildred thinks recycling is a waste of time.
I think there's a generation gap between me and Emma. She likes to doing all these recycling things, saving the earth and all that. But our generation, we don't have all these kind of thing like recycling. I don't think that saving the earth is like save a bottle. I don't know where's the recycling bin there. Just dump inside in the plastic bag and down the chute, that's all.
Mildred used to live with Emma and her family. But when Emma turned 6, they all moved out.
We were actually very close. But once she go to school, different already. Sometimes I go to her house. She's either on the laptop or in her room doing her work. We just say hello, have your lunch, that's all. I feel lonely sometimes because I'm away from them. It's quite sad lah that I will miss her lah.
Mildred's resisted any attempts to live a greener life, but Emma is determined to change this.
Hi, Mama. How are you? Hello.
She wants to involve Mildred in a zero-waste
time I was here was a lifetime ago. Times were hard, but simpler. My dad was a security guard. I thought I'd be one too. But when I realized how poor we were, I prayed for a different job.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister.
Good evening again. My fellow Singaporeans, we've had a busy year, both at home and internationally. 2 months ago, we hosted the first ever meeting between a US president and a DPRK chairman, Mr. Donald Trump and Mr. Kim Jong-un. Singapore was just the host. We were not involved in the discussions. Still, we had a big responsibility to ensure that the summit proceeded smoothly and safely. Why did the US and the DPRK choose Singapore to host the summit? I think they considered us a serious and reliable partner. We are friendly and straight with all parties, and both trusted us to have the infrastructure and the capability to provide a safe and secure environment. It was a daunting task, but we rose to the challenge. We welcome our guests with uniquely Singapore touches of warmth and hospitality. You may have seen the Sentosa cannons, barrels decorated with flowers and olive branches. SDC has good staff. We found and assigned Korean-speaking officers to the North Korean delegation. We packed goodie bags for 2,500 international journalists with thoughtful items like bottled water and a portable fan to beat the heat. We kept the journalists well fed with meals and snacks from local sponsors. We even had laksa-flavored cookies. After the summit, we held appreciation events for the officers who had worked so hard. I attended several of them. Tonight, I want to thank the officers and your families once again, personally. You didn't just answer the call of duty. You gave your best and more. Many of you worked 24/7. It was Ramadan and Muslim officers were fasting. Some officers even had to abort leave plans and cut short family vacations at the last minute. At the home team party, I chatted with a Gurkha contingent officer who had been on duty outside the St. Regis Hotel. He told me how proud he had felt when a woman leaned over the crowd barrier to tell him, "Thank you for keeping Singapore safe." I would also like to thank all the Singaporeans who made an extra effort to show what Singapore could do. We received postcards from a class of primary 2 students from MGS. The kids had written to thank Singapore for having lighted the world by hosting the summit. They reminded us that when Singaporeans work together, we can do great things. I'm heartened that even our 8-year-olds followed the news and knew what we were doing. Organizing the summit brought us all together, supporting and cheering one another on. We have every reason to feel proud of ourselves. Well done, Team Singapore. We hope that the summit has helped to diffuse tensions on the Korean peninsula. But Korea is not the only trouble spot in the world. The world situation has become much more uncertain. Openness, globalization, and free trade have all come under pressure. The US used to promote free trade and the free movement of people. But now many Americans are questioning the benefits of this approach. They feel that other countries are taking advantage of them. Thus, the US has made rebalancing trade a top priority. Rebalancing country by country, rebalancing item by item. It has unilaterally imposed tariffs on imports from other countries, the EU, Canada, and Mexico, and especially China. These countries are retaliating, imposing their own tariffs on US exports like soybeans, bourbon, blue jeans, and Harley-Davidson motorcycles. They want to inflict maximum pain on Trump's supporters who grow or make these things, hoping to force the US to back off. This tit for tat affects business confidence, undermines the multilateral trading system, and threatens global prosperity. There are no winners in a trade war. Small and open economies are especially vulnerable, and Singapore will suffer collateral damage. Beyond economics, world peace and security and stability are at risk. The trade frictions have eroded trust between nations and sharpened tensions and rivalries between countries. The US and Europeans have long been firm friends and allies, but now they are arguing fiercely over trade and defense spending. China and the US have the most important bilateral relationship in the world. They are interdependent, and they also need to work closely together on global issues like climate change. But the Trump administration has named China as America's strategic competitor. And President Xi Jinping has warned that China will punch back and will not turn the other cheek. This is an unprecedented situation. Henry Kissinger recently told the Financial Times, "We are in a very, very grave period for the world. We cannot be confident that the major powers will continue to work with one another and that the existing international system, which has held the world together for so long, will still hold. We do not know whether after a while new rules and norms for international cooperation will form, or whether there will be prolonged tension and suspicion, mutual rivalries, and hostile blocs. We are therefore at a turning point. We hope all countries will act with restraint and wisdom, overcome the current challenges, and find a new way to move forward together. In an uncertain world, ASEAN is all the more important to us. We have to strengthen ASEAN and work on our relationships with all our ASEAN partners, and especially with our two closest neighbors, Indonesia and Malaysia. Indonesia will hold elections next year. They've just decided on the presidential candidates. They'll be preoccupied with election campaigning for the next few months. I've worked well with President Jokowi. We have wide-ranging and mutually beneficial cooperation with Indonesia, and I hope this will continue. In October, President Jokowi will be hosting me to our annual leaders' retreat, this time in Bali. We will be discussing ways to do more together. Malaysia has just had its general election. For the first time ever, it's changed its governing coalition from Barisan Nasional to Pakatan Harapan. Malaysia has a new generation of leaders, a combination of young talent and experienced hands. Of course, Prime Minister Mahathir is not new to us. We've worked with him before. The last time he was Prime Minister for 22 years until 2003. That's when this picture was taken, which is why I look with more black hair. We completed several important projects with Malaysia under Dr. Mahathir, including the second link at Tuas and the Lingui Dam in Johor. We've worked with some of his coalition partners and ministers too. Anwar Ibrahim was my counterpart as Dr. Mahathir's deputy and also finance minister. And Home Minister Muhyiddin Yassin was the Johor Menteri Besar when we built the Lingui Dam. In May, soon after the Malaysian election, I visited Dr. Mahathir in Putrajaya. I also met DPM-1 Aziza and Anwar Ibrahim. I had good meetings with all three of them. I told Dr. Mahathir that I wanted to work with him to take our bilateral relationship forward. And he agreed that we should because we are each other's closest neighbors. Dr. Mahathir and his team are determined to review and change many of the policies set by the previous Malaysian government. I appreciate their reasons, but some of their reviews affect Singapore's ongoing projects with Malaysia, including the high-speed rail and the RTS, the Rapid Transit System link to Johor. We entered into these two projects in good faith after careful negotiations because they benefited both countries. Now, Malaysia wants to defer the HSR. Khaw Boon Wan has met Azmin Ali, Malaysia's Economic Affairs Minister, to understand Malaysia's intentions and to find a constructive way forward. Both the HSR and the RTS have legally binding bilateral agreements. These set out clearly the duties of each party and what happens if either party wants to change or to terminate the agreements. And both sides have to carry out what has been agreed to, unless we mutually agree to vary the terms. Dr. Mahathir has also said that he wants to review our 1962 water agreement. This is not a new issue. It's come up before when Dr. Mahathir was previously PM. And you know Singapore's view. The water agreement is sacrosanct. We must proceed strictly in accordance with its terms. To avoid any misunderstanding, Foreign Minister Vivian Balakrishnan recently reiterated our position in Parliament. So that's why I'm only giving you one sentence here. The full statement, look it up on the internet. We have worked well with Malaysia over the years. We've done substantial projects with successive governments and brought tangible benefits to both Singaporeans and Malaysians. And I hope that with Dr. Mahathir and his new team, we can build on our deep partnership, look ahead, and make further progress together. Ultimately, the fundamentals of our relationship with Malaysia have not changed. We are closely bound by ties of kinship and history, geography, and economics. We need to work together to tackle common challenges. And when our interests diverge, we must find constructive ways to resolve our differences. If Singapore-Malaysia relations stay stable and close, we can pursue win-win cooperation, and we can also each focus on our own domestic priorities. And we have many of them. So do the Malaysians. Although our external environment has become more uncertain, Singapore's economy is still growing steadily. Efforts to transform the economy are making progress. Our businesses, including SMEs, have been improving their productivity and expanding both in and outside of Singapore. Our workers, supported by unions and employers, are working hard to upgrade their skills and to seize new job opportunities. We are on the right track. The economic restructuring will lay a strong basis for our future growth. Earlier, in my Chinese speech, I spoke about cost of living pressures, what causes them, what the government is doing, and how you can stretch your own dollar. I explained how we are helping people cope with water and electricity bills through YouSave rebates. I described our changing lifestyles, how handphones, infant formula, and eating out, among other things, have impacted families, and what you can do to lessen the burden, and what the government is doing. Beyond these, three major expenditure items, housing, education, and healthcare, affect our cost of living in a big way at different points in our lives. When young couples buy an HDB flat, it is your first financial commitment. When you start a family and have children, preschool fees can add up. And when you grow older, medical bills can be unpredictable and significant, and your family can be a burden on your family. Therefore, housing, education, and healthcare are three areas that the government is very focused on. We'll spare no effort to ensure you can afford them. I've often spoken about education at National Day rallies, and last year I spoke quite a bit about preschool education. This year, I'll talk about healthcare and housing, starting with healthcare. Singaporeans are indeed spending more on healthcare, partly because we have more advanced treatment options and better equipment, more sophisticated equipment, but a bigger reason is because Singaporeans are living longer and growing older, which means we're likely to have more episodes of illness and more medical problems to treat. How have we kept healthcare spending affordable for Singaporeans? We have our 3 M's, MediSave, MediShield, and MediFund. At the same time, government provides heavy subsidies, up to 80% in our hospitals, and also subsidies for primary and long-term care. And this framework has worked well for many years. It's produced good healthcare outcomes, it's held national healthcare spending low, and also kept healthcare affordable to you. In recent years, we've made further changes to help you with your medical costs. First, we upgraded MediShield to MediShield Life, a big move to protect Singaporeans from unexpected medical bills, big ones. The payouts are more generous, and there's no lifetime claim limit. You enjoy lifelong protection even if you have pre-existing conditions or you were previously uninsured. If you suddenly have to go to the hospital or undergo a major operation, MediShield Life will help you. Last year alone, close to 200,000 Singaporeans benefited from MediShield Life, and their payouts amounted to over $800 million. Second, for outpatient expenses, we introduced the Community Health Assist Scheme, CHAS. At GP clinics, your CHAS card entitles you to generous subsidies, especially for the lower income. Dr. Lily Neo, who's a GP, told me that after the CHAS was introduced, she saw more elderly patients. And she said that our old folks are very resilient, and generally they put off seeing the doctor until they really cannot tahan anymore. But because of CHAS, they now come to her earlier, which is better because now she can treat them before their conditions worsen. CHAS has worked well. As we grow older, more of us will have chronic conditions like diabetes or high blood pressure or high cholesterol. But we can continue to live a full life if we manage these conditions by taking good care of ourselves, eating healthily, taking our medications regularly, and following up with our family doctor. I think all of us will appreciate a little bit of help with the regular medical bills for such chronic conditions. Today, CHAS covers middle and lower income Singaporeans. We will now extend CHAS to all Singaporeans with chronic conditions regardless of income. The benefits will continue to be tiered according to income, and MOH will announce the details later on. For those who visit the polyclinic instead of the GP, I have good news too. MOH has been building and upgrading polyclinics and medical centers across the island. For example, in Punggol or Kampong Admiralty, amongst others. Punggol Polyclinic opened last November. It focuses on women's and children's health to cater to the young families living nearby. Admiralty Medical Center is at Kampong Admiralty, where many elderly residents live and where I recorded my National Day message. And it provides health education, eye checks, and fall risk screening for the elderly on their doorstep, at their doorstep. I also recently opened a new Ang Mo Kio Polyclinic. It's bigger and better with more and improved services. Here you see they have a special dentist chair so that you can put a wheelchair patient in and the wheelchair patient doesn't have to get up and be maneuvered onto the dentist chair separately. It's a great help for old people. There's a senior care center. It offers daycare, rehab, and home care services, saving elderly and less mobile residents trips to the hospital. My residents, as you can see, are very happy. In fact, Ang Mo Kio Polyclinic has become so popular that the staff told me they're getting medical tourists. Not from overseas, but they come from Yishun and even Bedok and Jurong. Now, all of you are very welcome in Ang Mo Kio, but actually you don't have to worry because we're building more polyclinics across Singapore. In Sembawang, Eunos, Kallang, Bukit Panjang by 2020. And then a few years later, by 2023, 2 more in Nee Soon Central and Tampines North. Some of these are to upgrade and improve existing ones. But we will make sure that there are affordable, accessible, high-quality primary healthcare services all over Singapore. Thirdly, we've improved financial support for long-term care. We've seen our own parents or grandparents getting old, growing weaker, gradually becoming unable to take care of themselves. They can no longer feed themselves, dress themselves, or move around independently. They struggle to perform these activities of daily living, or you call it ADLs, activities of daily living. Activities that when you are young, you take for granted. It's a little bit sad, you see it happen, but that's life. One day it will happen to us. So we have the Elder Shield scheme. If you can't do 3 of these ADLs, Elder Shield will pay out a monthly sum, $300 or $400, for up to 6 years. MOH has revamped Elder Shield fundamentally, and soon we will have CareShield Life. CareShield Life will pay out significantly more, at least $600 a month. And it will pay out for as long as you live, not just 6 years. The scheme will start in 2020, and it will cover all Singaporeans born in 1980 or younger. And even people with an existing disability will be covered. The government will subsidize the premiums for lower and middle income families so that these families can pay their shares out of MediSave. And if you're older, born before 1980, you can also choose to join CareShield Life. It's not compulsory, but you can join, and I hope you will do so. Why? First, because you'll get a generous subsidy to help pay the premiums. The government will co-pay, so you're getting a good deal. But really, because CareShield Life will give you and your family more peace of mind. And it's something which you probably will need. Gan Kim Yong tells me that this is the most difficult of his healthcare schemes to explain to the public. So he commissioned me to do it for him tonight. Young, healthy people can't imagine themselves being old and disabled. When you're young, sometimes it feels like you're going to be young forever. But alas, it is not so. And if you wait until you are older before thinking about disability insurance, by then the premiums will be higher and you may no longer even be eligible because you may already have conditions and not be insurable. Singaporeans are living longer, but unfortunately our additional years are not always healthy years. As one in two of us will, at some point in our lives, no longer be able to perform 3 ADLs. Just think of the old folks you know, and you will see that this is the reality. And that's why I believe CareShield Life can help all of us, and it's offered to you. I hope you will take it up. These are some of the major changes to our healthcare financing over the last few years. We want all Singaporeans to have access to affordable, high-quality healthcare. No one should be denied medical care because they can't afford it. And that is my commitment to you. We have taken special care of elderly Singaporeans. 4 years ago, I launched the Pioneer Generation Package. The PGP was for the group of Singaporeans born in 1949 or earlier who came of age when the country was in our early years of development. They were a special generation who sacrificed much to bring up their families. They didn't have good educational opportunities. Most started working early, had low-paying jobs, and couldn't put aside much for old age. They spent most of their working lives in third world Singapore, only to retire in first world Singapore. Understandably, they were worried about their healthcare needs. We implemented the PGP to recognize the pioneer generation for their sacrifices and support them in their silver years. So far, we've spent more than $1.3 billion of the $8 billion we set aside for the PGP. 450,000 pioneers have benefited, and they fully deserve it. When we introduced the PGP, we knew that Singaporeans a little younger than the PGP, than the pioneers, than the PGs, would just miss out. We gave those who were born between 1950 and 1959 annual Medisave top-ups, $100 or $200, depending on their circumstances. Nevertheless, a Medisave top-up is not quite the same thing as a PGP. We have not forgotten this group. They lived through the tumultuous years of the 50s and the early 60s. First came the struggle for independence from the British. Domestically, Singapore politics was fiercely fought over different visions of the colony's future. In 1959, Singapore gained internal self-government, one big step towards independence. The PAP won the general election that year and formed the government for the first time. Then came the split with the communists, merger with Malaysia, then separation, and unexpected independence alone. For those born in the 50s, these were indelible, formative experiences that shaped them for life. They were too young to participate in events, but most were old enough to sense the electricity in the air, to share the excitement of the changes, to feel the hope of a brighter tomorrow. They saw the posters and banners that festooned the streets and were stirred by the rallying cry, Merdeka! One word that meant so much: liberation, freedom, independence. One word that expressed the determination and the passion, the ambitions and aspirations of a people roused and on the move. And seldom were the people more roused than on the 3rd of June, 1959, when Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, newly elected Prime Minister, addressed a huge rally at the Padang. As he told the crowd from the City Hall steps, "Once in a long while in the history of a people, there comes a moment of great change. Tonight is such a moment in our lives. We begin a new chapter in the history of Singapore. Most memorable was his call to action, captured in this clip. You've seen it, you've heard it, but it's still electrifying.
Saudara-saudara, saudari-saudari setanah air, merdeka! Lagi sekali yang bersemangat, merdeka!
This group, born in the 1950s, are the Merdeka generation. In Chinese, we can say Li Guo Yi Dai. In Malay, of course, Generasi Merdeka. There are 500,000 of the Merdeka generation today, and I'm proud to be one of them. Having lived through the battles and upheavals of the Merdeka struggle and seen how their parents have scraped and slogged for them, when the Merdeka generation grew up, they understood instinctively what was at stake. They accepted hardships, they made sacrifices, they answered the call of duty, they worked with their leaders to build a better tomorrow. The men were amongst the earliest batches called up for national service. They were the first of the SAF, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force. Many, especially the girls, didn't complete their education. They came out to work early to support the family and younger siblings. Some joined the workforce amidst economic uncertainty and high unemployment as the British forces withdrew from Singapore. All started working when wages were still low. Together with the pioneer generation, the Merdeka generation contributed to building Singapore, to making Merdeka independence a success. Compared to the pioneer generation, the Merdeka generation are better off. They were born later, they benefited from an extra decade of economic growth, and they were generally better educated than the pioneers, especially the younger ones. The Merdeka generation earned more over their lifetimes and accumulated more CPF savings. Because in the early 80s, wages increased sharply, CPF rates also went up significantly. But of course, the cohorts that came after them did even better. As we improved the education system year by year, more of the younger cohorts earned diplomas and degrees and found higher skilled and better paid jobs. And people stopped dropping out of school because they needed to work. They could afford school, they could get the education, they could invest in their children for a lifetime. And therefore, they earned more and saved more. Most of the Merdeka generation today are in their 60s. They've either left the workforce or will soon be retiring. Many have similar healthcare concerns as the pioneers. They are looking at their CPF savings and MediSave accounts, worried about having enough for their medical needs as they grow older. I think we owe something to them. The government will work out a Merdeka generation package. The Merdeka generation package will help this group to meet their medical expenses. We'll announce the details next year, but it'll cover similar areas like the PG package. For example, outpatient subsidies, MediSave top-ups, MediShield Life premium subsidies, and payouts for long-term care. The benefits will not be as large as for the pioneer generation, who had much less advantage in life. But the Merdeka generation package will go some way to relieve their healthcare worries. And more importantly, it will show our appreciation for the Merdeka generation and their contributions. In summary, we are making big changes to our healthcare financing framework. We've strengthened the 3 M's and introduced MediShield Life. We will soon enhance CHAS and introduce CareShield Life. We implemented the PG package, and we will set aside a significant sum for a Merdeka generation package. This is not yet the logo, but it's the first approximation, courtesy of my artists. Courtesy of my very good team from Nanyang Polytechnic. Our schemes are now more comprehensive and inclusive, and Singaporeans can have more peace of mind that their healthcare needs are well taken care of. By the way, if you look carefully at this, you will find that this is a yellow CHAS, which is a different color from the orange ones, and maybe there's a hint down there. Apart from healthcare, many Singaporeans are also concerned about housing. But unlike healthcare, housing is not a simple matter of keeping prices down, because house prices affect different people differently, and the same person differently at different times. When you want to buy a house, you want prices to be low, but when you own a house or you want to sell it, you want prices to be high. So it's not possible to please everybody. Still, Singapore's housing policies have been uniquely successful. We are the only major city in the world where nearly every young couple getting married can afford to buy their first home immediately. In other major cities, young couples can only hope to rent a flat, and the monthly rent can cost up to 40% of their household income. And in some cities, you don't rent a flat, you rent a space, or sometimes a tube, because that's all you can afford. Whereas in Singapore, you buy a flat, you pay for most of it, if not all of it, out of your CPF, and the flat is yours. Take Yong Kwang and Sabrina, for example. They got married recently, they bought a 4-room flat, BTO flat in Punggol. They paid a net price, $345,000 for the 4-room flat after HDB housing grants. And this was less than 5 times their annual income. As a rule of thumb, flats, housing costing about 5 times annual income is what is counted as affordable. And in this case, they had it less than 5 times. Having worked for some years already, they had saved enough in their CPF for the down payment. Now their monthly CPF contributions are enough to pay their installments, so they've not had to pay any cash out of pocket for the flat, either for the down payment or the installments. Yong Kwang and Sabrina's story is not unusual. 80% of us live in public housing. It's the Singapore norm. It is not just for poor families like elsewhere, but for a wide range of Singaporeans from all walks of life. Public housing is really, in Singapore, national housing. This didn't happen by chance. We made it happen through sound policies, unwavering political resolve, and the strong support of Singaporeans. Our founding fathers started the home ownership scheme in 1964. They wanted every citizen to benefit from the country's growth and prosperity, and to have a valuable stake that would be theirs, that they would defend, if necessary, with their lives. As a result, generations of Singaporeans have been uplifted by home ownership. Take, for example, a first-generation resident in Ang Mo Kio. His 4-room flat would now be about 40 years old and can fetch more than 400,000 on the resale market. In a good location, probably more. When he bought the flat 40 years ago, how much do you think he paid for it? $25,000. Even accounting for inflation, this is a huge appreciation. And this is how we've enabled many Singaporeans to have a substantial asset to your name, even low-income households. In fact, if you take our homeowners, who are 90% of the population, and you look at the poorest 1/5 of the homeowners, each one of them has on average $200,000 of wealth in his or her HDB flat. $200,000 of wealth. That means you take the value of the flat, you subtract off his mortgage unpaid, and he still has $200,000 to his name. Doesn't happen anywhere else. Young couples buying a flat today probably won't see as huge an appreciation as the Ang Mo Kio resident who bought the flat 40 years ago, because our economy is maturing and it can't grow as fast anymore. But you still get a good head start because the government helps you out, sells you a subsidized flat, or it gives you housing grants, and often both. And as long as our economy grows, the value of the flat will go up for many years, just not as dramatically. The oldest flats in Ang Mo Kio are now about 40 years old. Sometimes residents ask what will happen to their flat as time passes and their leases run down. Will their flats still hold values? What options do they have? Why are their leases for 99 years? Can they be longer? Actually, 99 years is a very long time. Let's say you buy a new flat from HDB in your early 30s. After 99 years, you will be 130 plus years old. And I would guess you probably won't need this flat anymore. If you have children, they also will be very old, almost as old as the flat itself, in their 80s or 90s. And if you have grandchildren, by then your grandchildren will be grandparents. So 99 years is a very long time. In particular, when you retire, after living in your flat for 30 to 40 years, the flat will still have a good 60 plus years of lease left. And that's long enough for it to retain substantial value and be a good retirement nest egg, as you can see with the Ang Mo Kio example I gave you just now. You can continue living in the flat, you can rent out a room for income if you need to, and one day pass on the flat to your children. Or you can right size, sell it, move to a smaller unit. Or you can go for lease buyback and return the remaining lease to HDB. Then use the money you get back for retirement. I explained how all this works in a previous National Day rally, 2014. So if you look up the clips on the YouTube, you will still find them there. But we can make things better. We can do several things to help residents monetize their older flats. We can expand the lease buyback scheme. We can do things to improve the liquidity of the resale market. That means make it easier for people to buy and sell old flats. And MND is working on this. But what if you had bought a resale flat instead? Well, our oldest flats are at most 52 years old. So you have at least another 47 years left of your lease, which is still quite a long time. Very few of today's HDB owners will outlive their leases. HDB estimates that it will happen to less than 2% of households, including those who bought resale flats. So it's not likely to happen to you. It could happen, not likely. It could happen to your children if they inherit your flat. But this shouldn't be a problem if your children buy their own BTO flat with its own 99-year lease, as many do, because then an inheritance for them would be a gift and a bonus. And even if you have to return your old flat at the end of the lease, don't worry, because the government will help you to get another flat to live in. It may be a BTO flat from the HDB with a fresh 99-year lease if you're eligible for another one. It may be a resale flat on a shorter and cheaper lease, or it may be a two-room flexi flat for retirement. Different options depending on your needs and what you can afford. But whichever option you choose, you will have to pay for the lease. And this is only fair because you bought the original flat knowing when the lease would run out and knowing that the flat would then have to be returned to HDB. There is one fundamental reason why HDB leases are for 99 years, and that is we need to be fair to future generations. Let me explain. HDB sells you the flat for 99 years. You own it, you can pass it on for 1 or 2 generations, After that, the flat comes back to the state, the government redevelops the land and builds new flats for future generations. This is the only way to recycle the land to ensure that all our descendants can buy new BTO flats of their own. If instead the government sold you the flat on freehold, that means in perpetuity, sooner or later we would run out of land to build new flats for future generations. The owners would pass down the flat to some of their descendants, many generations into the future. Those lucky to have a flat, well, they become flat owners. Those not lucky enough to inherit the property, they will get nothing. So our society would be split into property owners and those who cannot afford a property. And I think that would be most unequal and socially divisive. So that's why 99-year leases are not just for HDB flats. In fact, for private housing also. The government only sells land on 99-year leases. There's also a practical reason why we can't extend the leases easily. If you look at older buildings today, some look rather worn even before they are 50 years old. Some condominiums are like that, private property. And after 99 years or a century, I'm sure the mechanical and electrical systems will be obsolete. The concrete will have deteriorated in our tropical climate, and even if we could fix all that, the recurrent maintenance costs would be very high. So it's better to let the leases expire, take the blocks back, demolish, rebuild afresh. We may keep a few blocks for historical or heritage value, or sentimental reasons, or to remind people what the old days were like, but these should be the exception. For the others, we can rebuild newer, better, more livable flats, blocks, townships, more suited to what our grandchildren and great-grandchildren will want to live in. Today, if I offer you to live in a 100-year-old flat, I don't think there'll be many takers, because you want the mod cons. You want the lifts, you want the power supply, you want the modern sanitation, you want the convenience, you want the finishes, the styles. You want to be up to date. And I think our grandchildren will also want to be up to date. And it's better we take back, we rebuild. Singapore progresses while keeping an essence of its history and soul. And that's why, when the leases expire, the flats have to be returned to the state. There are still many decades before the first HDB leases expire. As the flats grow older, the government will help you to keep them in good condition. And we do this through HDB's upgrading programs. We started with a main upgrading program in the 1990s. This one happens to be in my own constituency, and you can see each one of these red bars is one lift tower. This is one block, this is one block. It's a block with 7 lift towers at government expense, upgraded MUP and LUP together. Later, we replaced the MUP with a home improvement program, HIP. The HIP has been very popular. It's an essential upgrade. We fix up maintenance problems like spoiling concrete, ceiling leaks, damaged pipes. This is the new toilet after it's been upgraded. We upgrade the electrical supply too. This is a substation. Because more families have air cons, washing machines, computers, and now PMDs, personal mobility devices needing to be charged. The HIP scheme is heavily subsidized. The government pays up to 95%. So residents pay as little as a few $100s for the upgrading. And it's not surprising that after upgrading, the flat value usually goes up. We launched the HIP 10 years ago. The final batch of HIP flats will be announced by next year. So within a few years, all flats eligible for HIP will have been balloted, hopefully passed, executed, and upgraded. And that means altogether 450,000 flats upgraded under MUP plus the HIP. Now, HIP covers flats built up to 1986. And we launched the program a decade ago. So the flats which missed qualifying for HIP are now starting to show their age. I know many HDB residents in these younger flats are also hoping for an upgrading. In estates like Yishun or Tampines or Jurong, there are flats built both before and after the 1986 cutoff. So people ask, why next door got HIP, my flat got no HIP? And then there's Pasir Ris, where residents started collecting their keys in 1987. So Teo Shee Hen used to remind the ministers regularly that Pasir Ris hasn't had any HIP projects, and I would console him regularly that Pasir Ris flats were very lucky. You don't need HIP yet, you are new, very good. But still, he said, my residents are waiting anxiously. Now that the oldest Pasir Ris flats are 30 years old, they are no longer quite so new. Wear and tear is starting to show, so I'm very happy to announce that we will expand the HIP, and HIP will now include blocks built up to 1997. And that means another 230,000 flats will benefit. So Pasir Ris will get HIP, the older flats. And so will Yishun, Tampines, Jurong, and several other estates. Beyond HIP, what more can we do as our flats grow older? The expanded HIP will include flats built up to 1997. In other words, the flats will get HIP about 30 years after they were built. After upgrading, these flats should be good for another 30 to 40 years. By that time, the flats will be 60 to 70 years old, and I expect they will be showing their age again. We are determined not to let our public housing degenerate into ragged, squalid slums, which has happened in many other cities. So we should do a second upgrading, a second round of upgrading, at about the 60 or 70 year mark. And let's call this HIP 2. 60 to 70 years old. HIP 2 will keep the flats safe and livable, and also help them to retain their value as their leases run down. And it should see the flats through to the end of their leases. So in short, every HDB flat can expect to be upgraded twice during their lease. Once when they are about 30 years old through the HIP or MUP, and a second time through HIP 2 when they are about 60 to 70 years old. The first flats will reach 60 to 70 years old about 10 years from now. So that's when we plan to launch the HIP 2 program. Akan datang. HIP 2 is a huge financial commitment for the government. If you own a private property, you're fully responsible for its upkeep and upgrading. But because HDB is public housing, the government will upgrade each HDB flat not once, but twice during its lifespan. Furthermore, the government will help to pay most of the upgrading costs. The first HIP will cost the government more than $4 billion. And HIP 2 will probably cost even more because the flats will be twice as old by then. But it is well justified, and we'll do it so long as MOF has the money. I know what some of you are thinking. HIP and HIP 2 are fine if I want to stay on in my flat. But what if I want to move out? Can I get SERS, Selective En-Bloc Redevelopment Scheme? SERS is a very good scheme for estate rejuvenation. It brings new residents into the estate, often young families, who inject vitality into the community. I have 2 SERS projects in Teck Ghee, and recently I visited Teck Ghee Parkview. It is the BTO blocks which came into the SERS site. The new flats have made a noticeable difference to Teck Ghee. the estate is livelier, more children are running around, more young couples, like this one whom I visited. It's cheered up the neighborhood. Now we have more babies in Teck Gee, some even able to dance with their mothers. So yes, SERS is indeed one option if your flat happens to be SERSed and selected. But SERS is a very limited scheme because it's meant for selected HDB blocks or precincts which have high development value, which we can unlock. And what does that mean? Take Tanglin Halt, for example. It's in Queenstown, it's our first HDB township. It wasn't built optimally, the precincts were not always well laid out. There are low-rise units, the flats have layouts where there are large surface car parks, empty spaces, odd leftover spaces. So if you take it all back and redevelop it completely, Tanglin Halt is being SERSed. You can use the space better, you can create denser housing, greener environments. So from something like this, you can go to something like this. 40 years change, or 50 years change. It makes economic sense in such cases for the government to take back the flats early and redevelop the site, because there's a lot of value unlocked. So we can share this value with residents through generous compensation. And with generous compensation, we can make the acquisition compulsory. In other words, HDB decides on SERS, residents don't get to vote. However, HDB estimates that only about 5% of flats are suitable for SERS. There'll be a few more SERS projects to come, but many projects with high redevelopment potential have already been done because HDB chose the most promising ones and did them first. So what about the flats that do not get SERS? Well, HDB has been studying this intensively, and I have good news for you tonight. More households will be able to benefit from redevelopment before their leases expire. Why? Because the government has good reason to take back more flats and redevelop them as they grow older before 99 years are up. And let me explain. When HDB towns grow older and the leases in the estates are nearing expiry, we have to redevelop the towns. We want to do this in an orderly way. In the early years, because of the housing shortage, HDB often built in a tremendous rush, and several older estates were built within short periods, especially in the 70s and 80s. Marine Parade, between 74 and 76, within 3 years. Ang Mo Kio and Bedok, after that, 75 to 81, within 6 to 7 years. Therefore, if we do, this one is Marine Parade. Therefore, if we do not plan ahead, 99 years later, all the leases in such towns will expire around the same time, and then will be returned to the state within a few years, and we'll have to find new homes for a lot of people at once, and HDB will have to tear down and rebuild all the old flats in a hurry. Just like when we first built Marine Parade, Ang Mo Kio, and Bedok. And I don't think that's a good idea. The towns will become construction sites all over again, with cranes all over the place. I think we should redevelop our old towns over 20 to 30 years, rather than within 4 to 5 years, progressively. And that means starting when the oldest flats reach about 70 years old onwards. So some flats you redevelop when they get to 70 years old, some 75, some 80, and you stretch it out over 20, 30 years, and progressively do things in a measured and considered way. Then, just like with SERS, the estate and the community can be renewed progressively. And more new and younger residents will move in, and the estate will become more vibrant. Those moving out will have somewhere to go to, and those staying will have rejuvenation to look forward to. And that's why it makes sense for the government to take back the flats progressively over several decades, starting from about 70 years onwards, and stage out the redevelopment. We will need a new scheme for this. Of course, we will compensate the residents whose flats are taken back early, and we also help them to get another flat to live in just like we would if their leases had run out. But the terms will be less generous than SIRS because there'll be less financial upside. There's social merit in it, there's community merit in it, but there's not so much financial upside. So it's less generous financially, and therefore the scheme will be voluntary. And I will call it VERS. Voluntary Early Redevelopment Scheme. So if you don't get SIRS, you can hope to be VERSed. Residents in the precinct will have to vote for VERS, just like for HIP. If the residents vote yes, we'll proceed. The government will buy back the whole precinct, all the flats, and redevelop. And residents can use their proceeds to help pay for another flat. If the residents vote no, then they can continue to live in their flats until their leases run out. This is a long-term plan. We will not start doing VERS for another 20 years. We need the time to work out how to choose the precincts, how to pace the redevelopments out, the specific terms of the government's offer, and so on. We also need to study how to afford VERS for the long term. But I think such a scheme is necessary, and we will start planning for VERS now. I've covered quite a bit of ground on housing, so let me do a quick recap. There's an examination later. First, we will expand HIP to upgrade 230,000 flats built between 87 and 97. And this will happen when the flats are about 30 years old. And we'll start soon. Second, we'll do HIP 2 to upgrade flats a second time. This is a big project, which will happen when the flats reach 60 to 70 years old. And HIP 2 will start in about 10 years' time. Third, we'll have VERS to progressively redevelop precincts in aging housing estates. And this will happen from about the 70th year onwards, and we will start 20 years from now. "11 years ago, at NDR 2007, I showed a CGI fly-through of what we hoped Punggol would look like one day. Some of you may remember watching it. At that time, Punggol 21 Plus was just a gleam in the eyes of our HDB planners. Recently, Lawrence Wong showed me a new fly-through of Punggol, this time using a drone. Real life, not CGI. Let me show you the video. We start from outer space, we fly in, we propose to create a Punggol waterway to build a town on both sides. And if you fly along the waterway, this is what we thought it would look like. And 10 years and a lot of hard work later, you cross the bridge and it becomes reality. And this is HDB housing, there are parks, there are green areas, there are schools. This is a commercial development, it's Oasis, the Punggol Polyclinic is there. This is Waterway Cascadia, another development, HDB. And Back to the Future, this is the Punggol Digital District, which is adjacent to the SIT campus, Singapore Institute of Technology. Thank you for joining my guided tour. What my government envisioned more than 10 years ago, we've made reality. This has been the story of Singapore for more than 50 years. We said this would be a metropolis, and so it came to pass. We will continue to transform our city, a whole island. We'll never let Singapore become a shabby shadow of some past glory, but always keep it a vibrant and attractive place to live in. We are creating green corridors, expanding Changi Airport, moving PSA to Tuas, and building a new city center on the southern waterfront. We are planning and building new HDB towns. Bidadari is already under construction. Next is Tengah in the west, and later Caldecott, each with its own special concepts. Later, after Paya Lebar Air Base has moved to Changi, we will redevelop the eastern part of the island. And in 30 to 40 years' time, we'll rebuild our existing towns into the future Marine Parade, the future Ang Mo Kio, the future Bedok, and others. Each development will learn from the previous one and be even better. And we are designing each town so that the community remains youthful and vibrant, and the facilities serve a wide range of needs and interests for now and the future. Townships for all ages. Just as we turn Punggol 21 Plus from CGI to reality, we will make these other plans come true. Then future PMs can show them off at future NDRs too. HDB will be very busy. They may have to change their name to HRB, Housing Redevelopment Board. Indeed, we will never be done building Singapore. Tonight, I've spoken about major shifts in our external development. I've described our plans to improve healthcare and public housing. These are fundamental commitments by my government to you. They are ambitious endeavors and will require large expenditures. These schemes will stretch over 50 years and more, several generations, and many general elections. But we are planting the seeds now, conceiving the plans, investing the resources, building the institutions. The benefit will be felt by ourselves, our children, and our grandchildren decades from now. 10 years before we start HIP2. 20 years before we start VERS. And if you are 30 years old and get enrolled in CareShield Life, it may be 50 years before you need the payouts, longer if you are lucky. Very few countries can make such long-term plans and anticipate needs and opportunities into the distant future. But in Singapore, we can and we will. This government believes it owes it to you to look ahead, share our thinking with you, pool our ideas, and work it out with you to make it happen. Our plans will not unfold exactly as we predict, because nobody can tell what will befall us over the next half century. What new technologies will disrupt the world? Will it be a world where countries big and small can work together? Will there be war or peace? But whatever the future brings, we know what Singapore must strive for to give ourselves the best chance of success. We must have a thriving economy and sound government finances to generate the resources to carry out our projects. We must maintain political stability and outstanding leadership so that we can continue to plan for the future. And most important of all, we must always stay one united people and work together to build a better Singapore for ourselves. Building and rebuilding Singapore is not just about satisfying material needs. The human spirit must flourish in Singapore. Recently, the National Geographic magazine published a special issue on Singapore, City of Tomorrow. You can pick up a copy later after the rally. The issue celebrates ordinary Singaporeans doing extraordinary things, taking the path less traveled, excelling in their own fields. One of them is Mark Ong, an artist who designs customized sneakers for celebrities and shoe companies under his own brand name, SBTG, pronounced sabotage. You would never have guessed, but it works. It started when he won an online competition in 2003. Overnight, he had an order for 72 pairs of sneakers. He sold the first pairs for $300 each, and now his earlier works sell for thousands of dollars. I wish my old sneakers were as valuable. To Mark, this is a dream come true, as he's loved drawing since he was a child, inspired inspired by the art and creativity of his parents. Congratulations, Mark. There are many Singaporeans just like Mark, following their passions, breaking new ground, doing Singapore proud. Let me share with you a few I came across recently. This is Dr. Azhar Ali, a senior research scientist at the Cancer Science Institute of Singapore. Azhar is leading a team of researchers from Singapore and the US to study lung cancer. The team recently made a breakthrough because they discovered a slimming drug that could help bring lung cancer under control. Shabas, Azhar. These are Darius Chung and Roshni Matani. DPMTO met them in Jakarta and told me about them. They are husband and wife, both digital entrepreneurs, each with their own online business, his and hers. Darius co-founded 99.co, a search platform for property that connects agents, buyers and sellers, not just in Singapore, but also in Indonesia, which, by the way, has a very lively startup and tech scene. And there are many opportunities there. Roshni founded a media company that operates the AsianParent.com. It's a website which is popular with many Singaporean This is Sim Chi Yin. She's an award-winning documentary photographer and artist. She was commissioned as the Nobel Peace Prize photographer last year, the first Asian to be chosen. And she travels to places like North Korea and Kazakhstan to pursue her very adventurous projects. She recently joined Magnum Photos, an acclaimed international photographic cooperative. You can't apply, you have to be invited to join. Chi Yin is not able to be here, but I'm happy to have her parents with us here tonight. This is Michael Kerr, who gave up his career as a pharmacist to take over his father's popiah business and carry on his 79-year-old family legacy. If you look very carefully, these are the popiahs, and he also sells kueh pai tea down there. Michael now travels the world to introduce his popiah and promote Singapore food. All the best, Michael. And finally, Wong Kah-chun, a conductor and composer. Kah-chun grew up in a Chinese-speaking family. He discovered Western classical music as a young boy at Jurong Primary School. His math teacher was in charge of the school band and asked him to join it. Through his school band, Kah-chun found his love for music, pursued his music education, and won a scholarship to the NUS Yong Siu To Conservatory of Music. And after that, a National Arts Council scholarship to do his master's in Germany. School band started in 1965. Soon after we became independent, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew made school bands a priority. And this gave many students from modest backgrounds the opportunity to pick up music. In our first National Day parade in 1966, many newly formed school bands marched with pride, wearing their new uniforms. This was before Kah-chun was born. Today, aged 32, Kah-chun is the chief conductor of the Nuremberg Symphony Orchestra in Germany, a prestigious appointment. Next year, Kah-chun will be a guest conductor of the New York Philharmonic Orchestra for their Lunar New Year concert. Kah-chun also co-founded Project Infinitude, an initiative to bring music to less privileged and special needs children in Singapore and elsewhere. He's giving back to society so that others can discover music just like he did. Here he is with the kids at Child at Street 11, which is a non-profit organization that runs a preschool in Ang Mo Kio. But when Kah-chun comes back to his HDB flat, comes home to his HDB flat in Jurong West that he grew up in, Second floor, still no aircon, sweaty at night. He says, it's still the best because it is home and better than any hotel. These are just a few of many, many Singaporeans who are pursuing dreams, breaking new ground, and flying our flag high. We rejoice in their successes. They show the world that here in Singapore, passion can indeed be made possible. Our forefathers transformed Singapore from mudflats to a metropolis. Thanks to them, today we are in an immensely stronger position. With what we now have, we can achieve so much more together. 100 years from now, Singapore should stand out, not just for its modern skyscrapers and world rankings, but for being a nation of boundless opportunities, a society where every skill and talent is recognized, developed, and celebrated, and where those who have done well contribute back to society and help others to do better. As one of the primary 2 MGS girls put it, Singapore may be a small country, but we have big hearts. Let us live up to that ambition. Let us continue to stand tall, chase rainbows, and work together for many brighter tomorrows. Thank you and good night. Thank you.
Download the Toggle app now and catch